The hidden power struggle, US versus China in Venezuela and beyond. In an era defined by shifting power and global competition, the world's major players are engaged in a complex and often unseen struggle. Beyond the headlines of war and diplomacy lies a deeper contest, one that will shape the future of the 21st century. Today, we explore how the United States and China are battling for influence in an unlikely arena, Venezuela, and how this struggle extends far beyond Latin America. Setting the stage. Venezuela, a country of nearly 30 million people, blessed with the largest proven oil reserves on Earth. Yet, for decades, it has been trapped in cycles of economic hardship and political turmoil. Its position, just north of South America and close to US shores, makes it a critical point in the geopolitics of energy, trade, and influence. But Venezuela's story is more than oil. It's about control over resources, alliances, and the balance of global power. Venezuela isn't just another oil-producing nation. Whoever controls access to its reserves wields enormous leverage in the global energy market. And it's that leverage, economic and strategic, that has drawn the attention of superpowers, especially the United States and China. The United States and Venezuela. For nearly a century, the United States has viewed Latin America as its own sphere of influence, a principle rooted in the Monroe Doctrine of 1823. Through the 20th century, the US intervened politically, economically, and militarily across the region, from Cuba to Chile, from Nicaragua to Panama, often to protect its strategic interests. Chavez nationalized industries, expelled foreign companies, and built closer ties with China and Russia, a direct challenge to Washington's dominance. Venezuela's government must restore democracy and human rights to its people. Behind the rhetoric of democracy and freedom, however, lies a less discussed reality: oil. Control of Venezuela's oil means control over a key lever of global energy supply. Economic pressure. The US has imposed more than 150 sanctions on Venezuela since 2015. These measures crippled the nation's ability to trade, restricting access to financial markets and technology. These sanctions hit ordinary people hardest. Inflation soared, imports stopped, and the economy collapsed. But the geopolitical message was clear: align with China and Russia, and you pay a price. China's strategic moves. While Washington tightened its grip, Beijing saw opportunity. China extended more than $60 billion in loans to Venezuela between 2007 and 2017, most to be repaid in oil. A new economic order. These oil-for-loan deals gave China long-term energy security while freeing Venezuela from Western financial systems dominated by the US dollar. China's strategy isn't just about resources, it's about building an alternative global network, one where trade and diplomacy flow through Beijing, not Washington. This vision ties directly into China's Belt and Road Initiative, a massive infrastructure project spanning continents, ports, railways, and data networks. In Latin America, over 20 nations have now signed agreements with China under the Belt and Road framework. Venezuela's inclusion strengthens Beijing's foothold in the Western Hemisphere. Economic diplomacy. Through soft loans, technology exchanges, and pandemic-era medical aid, China has positioned itself as an indispensable partner to struggling economies, contrasting with Washington's approach of sanctions and political pressure. The bigger picture. The struggle over Venezuela mirrors a global contest, the US and China vying for dominance not just in economics, but in ideology and influence. Military and economic strategies. The US maintains over 750 military bases worldwide, many encircling China's borders. Meanwhile, China counters with economic expansion, building ports in Pakistan, railways in Africa, and digital infrastructure across Asia. This is a dual-track competition. The US uses hard power, military presence, and alliances. China uses soft power, loans, trade, and technology. And in between lies the global south, regions like Latin America and Africa, where both powers court influence through aid, trade, and ideology. From the South China Sea to the Caribbean, the patterns repeat: investment, influence, resistance, and reaction. The human element. Amid these power games, ordinary people pay the highest price. For Venezuelans, years of sanctions, political instability, and inflation have turned daily survival into a struggle. The cost of conflict. My children haven't tasted milk in months. We barter for rice, sugar, anything we can find. Stories like Maria's illustrate the real cost of geopolitical confrontation. Livelihoods destroyed by forces far beyond national borders. Nosotros queremos un futuro. We want a future. These voices echo across nations caught between superpowers, from Venezuela to Zambia, from Sri Lanka to Sudan, all facing the consequences of a reshaped world economy. Historical context. The US strategy in Latin America is not new. For decades, Washington has justified interventions under the banner of protecting democracy. Lessons from history. From overthrowing elected governments to supporting coups, these actions were meant to keep the region within the US sphere of influence during the Cold War. Today, as China and Russia extend their reach, we see echoes of that same Cold War logic, but this time with economic and digital tools replacing military invasions. Future implications. As US influence faces new challenges, China and Russia are promoting a multipolar world, one not dominated by a single superpower. A new world order? Venezuela may be just one front in this global contest, but its outcome will help shape the rules of the new international system. If China's approach succeeds in Latin America, it could redefine how developing nations engage with global powers, moving away from dependence on the West. At stake is not just oil or trade, but the architecture of global governance itself. Who sets the rules? Who writes the future? The battle for influence in Venezuela is a reflection of something far larger, a world in transition. As power shifts eastward, alliances fracture and reform, and nations like Venezuela become pawns and players in equal measure. What lies ahead? The 21st century will not be defined by war alone, but by competition for energy, technology, and control of the narratives that shape our world. Thank you for watching. If you found this documentary insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. And remember, the stories that shape our world are often hidden in plain sight.